All right, you guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be showing you how we created this speed dash effect. It's actually inspired by Diego Woods and a few other creators that I've seen do something similar. But yeah, it seems more complicated than it really actually is. It's very simple, but let's just get straight into it so I can show you guys what I did. So first, we're going to start with our main footage. You could do this one of two ways. You could record consistently and have the clip going throughout and then do the actions after, or you can grab a clean plate and then you can record your talent doing the dashing sequence that you see on the screen. Either way works, but just make sure that you put the clean plate underneath and then go through your footage and cut out the parts of the dash that you want to keep. This is where we're going to get into the second part, which is rotoscoping each part out individually. Now for this part, like I said, we found the parts of the footage that we wanted the dash to take place. This is in a few different places, and then when we found what worked, we started to rotoscope out each part of that sequence. And this is only a few frames, give or take each, so don't be too worried about it. It might be a bit tedious at first, but just make sure that you get a clean enough rotoscope so that the motion looks good. And if you're working with log footage like I am, just put a levels effect on it so that you can get some of the details back in the footage to get a cleaner rotoscope while you're doing it. So when you completed that part of your footage, just take those clips and put them a little closer together so that we have the sequence within the timing and the position where the dashes would make more sense. So from here, I ended up pre-comping a lot of the rotoscope layers, because when you start adding the time remapping or speeding up stuff, it'll start to interfere with the actual rotoscope. So just pre-comp all of those different roto layers by themselves so that we could start moving to the second step. So now that we got everything in place and we have it pre-comped, what I did was I went to the end of the first clip, and where the speed dash starts to take place, where he's about to initially dash, I chopped off a few frames and then I sped it up to make it look like he was actually accelerating into the next clip. And this is part of what helps actually sell the effect. So just play around with the numbers on how you fast forward it to make it look good. It could be 30, it could be 40, it could be 50%. It just depends on how fast your talent was actually moving when they did this. So after I got everything in place, what I did with the clips that came after initial one was put a keyframe for the position at the end and a few frames beforehand. And then I tried to make the keyframe for it lead into the position coming next so that it looks like the character was moving across the screen to get to the next location where the dash takes place. And if you really want to sell this more, you can actually keyframe the scale effect. And as he's getting closer to the frame, I want you to keyframe the scale getting a little bigger as he's moving through the frame. And for the last clip, when he gets closer to the camera, I actually turned that into a 3D layer because he was coming toward. It would be easier to move it in Z space. So we actually keyframed the position in Z space and had that push forward to make it look more fluid. Now when you have all of this done, add motion blur to all of these layers, and when you're done with that, hit play. And now you should see the speed dash actually moving really fluid across the screen, and it looks great right now, but we're gonna finesse it a bit more to make it look a bit better, just adjusting things like the speed, the retiming, and the position and location of everything. So just make small tweaks in between, and then when you find what's good, we're gonna move on to the next step. So the next thing I did after was use Filmrite's energy assets. And I took my time going through different assets to figure out what would emulate what looks like energy or wind or kind of particles that would move with somebody speed dashing around. And this is the part where you finesse it a lot to find what really works for your scene. But once I did, I just started adjusting all of them, putting mask in between so some of the energy didn't leak out, changing the scale and the position of it to match with the scene, and sometimes even stretching it out and retiming some of that footage. And to blend it in with the log footage a little better, I added a curves effect and dropped down the highlights just so I made sure that the whites were balanced out in the scene. But like I said, we work on making it look pretty after, but sometimes I do this as a visual reference to make sure it's kind of where I want it to be. The quick burst energy assets were really effective for making this kind of like tie itself together. So I'd highly suggest getting this pack from Filmrite and working with this if you wanted to create something similar to what I did. And after I was done that, I pretty much took the same approach using Filmrite's electricity package, and every time the character was dashing side to side, I added some arcs, some disperse, and some ground electricity assets. And because I wanted the electricity to fade away, I actually ended up adding a mask to it and used that mask as an inversion and feathered it out a tad bit so that I can actually make it disappear as he was moving through the scene. And even here, as I said, you can go through a bunch of these assets and find what works for your scene the best, but I thought creatively this was the coolest way for me to do it. So just take your time in positioning and rescaling everything, even retiming it, so that you can find something that looks pretty good for this scene. But I'll let you guys see a bit of what I was doing to make this happen in a time lapse. And when you're done with the energy and the electric assets and putting them in place, remember to pre-comp these all together. And if you want consistency between all of the electric assets, when you're done with the pre-comp, add a tint effect to it, add a color vibrance effect so that you can change the color of all the assets so that they're exactly the same, and then add your glow, whether that be optical glow, deep glow, or the native glow effect in After Effects. So the next thing I did was add some smoke assets that were moving around inside the scene. So when he was taking off, I found different areas where I thought the smoke would look good. This is from Action Essentials, the pack from Video Copilot, I believe it is. So I just took a bunch of these assets and put them in places, duplicating them, and then putting them near his foot where he took off. Just retimed them a bit, added it in a screen blending mode, and then tint it to fit the color of the dirt within the scene. And yeah, this is what kind of pulled this part together. It's nothing too crazy, but just make sure the assets are leading up in the position that the talent's actually going, and I think this should look pretty good. And turn down your opacity a bit if you need to, just to blend it a bit better. But yeah, this is another piece of the element that you guys seen me put inside of here. And then for the energy's displacement, add an adjustment layer. First duplicate the energy layer and then disable it, but add an adjustment layer on top of that. And then I put a compound blur on it, change the values just a tad bit because you don't want to make it too obvious, and then added a vector blur to that also too. And it just adds a bit of distortion to the energy as it's moving by. So, and to add the shadow, we pretty much duplicated all of the roto layers and then made them a 3D layer and then repositioned them to make it match what the ground looked like. Added a fill effect and a fast box blur and spread it out a bit, and then just drop your opacity down and then just keyframe the movement if you need to, depending on the scene with your talent. And that's how we created the shadow inside of the scene. After we pre-comped everything together, we went to the final part, and every time that he did his dash, we added a shake to it. I like Crate's camera shake. It's a script by Production Crate. It's actually free. I used Jolt 1 and changed the amplitude a bit, and every time he dashed, I added a shake. And as he got closer, I changed the amplitude a bit more because there would be more impact as he approached the frame. So this is how I created the shakes that you see inside the footage as he was moving around doing the dash. And in a clip like this, you would typically see inside of a lens some kind of flaring happening. So we found some assets that look like lens flares and put them inside the scene, changing it to a screen blending mode and turning down the opacity and just matching it with when the electricity appeared in the scene as he was dashing. And the last thing that we did was add chromatic aberration, changing things like the distortion amount and the radio blur amount, and then keyframing the center to move around with the subject so that the blur didn't just stay in the middle and actually stayed with the subject as he's dashing through the scene. Otherwise than that, it was pretty much us just color grading the rest of the scene and putting things where we thought were fit and going back and forth in between the pre-comps and just adjusting things, adding things like electricity, changing the smoke, retiming, positioning, and all of that good stuff. And before the tutorial takes like 2 or 3 hours, I just wanted to break this down pretty simply to show you guys the fundamental steps that I took, like what's the foundation of creating this effect, and from there letting you guys get creative with it to have your own interpretation of the same thing that I did, but in your own way. And if you guys like this video, remember to hit that like, subscribe, comment down below what you think and some other stuff that you guys might want to see. Share it with somebody that you think will find this valuable. And yeah, get out there and create. Remember, there's no bad camera. There's just people that don't understand how to use them. Peace.